Hi guys, MrRoflWaffles here. This is my Ancient Evil Easter egg guide. It's going to be compartmentalized into several discrete sections, so it's easy to follow, and there'll be some timestamps on the screen so you can skip around if that's something you want to do. As always, my usual Easter egg advice applies. If you get stuck at any time, check the description and feel free to ask other people questions in the comments section as well. There's a chance that if I need to make a correction, I might make a pinned comment, and that way, if something, for example, gets patched in the Easter egg, you'll know about it from that comment or from the description, so check there if you have any trouble. I don't have any serious recommendations for loadout in this egg other than maybe Undead Man walking for the boss, just because it makes life a little bit easier, but that could be said for any boss fight, really, so I don't feel like I've got any major things that you have to recommend here. There are two things that you need to get done to really get this Easter egg moving at the beginning of your game. One of those things is building all 4 of your gauntlets, and the other thing is doing enough tribute challenges with the Oracle to build up the flame in front of the gold Apollo statue in the spawn area. The exact nature of what's going on here I'll explain in more detail in a second, but I wanted to note straight away that this is something that you can adapt to your playstyle. So if you want to do all the gauntlets first, for example, just to get them out of the way and give yourself a little bit of peace of mind with some super strong weapons, then you can absolutely do that. But if you want to optimize this and really try and get it done at a super low round and things like that, you're probably going to want to spend a little bit more time focusing on the tribute challenges and then slipping in the gauntlet challenges amongst them where you see fit. One important note is that throughout this egg, whenever I'm talking about the gauntlets, I'm talking about their redeemed versions once you've done the upgrade process and you've gone through the little trial that you need to do with each one. I'm never going to be talking about just the base form, I'm always going to be talking about the redeemed version. With that said, let's start breaking down the steps. The first thing you're going to want to do is activate the Sentinel artifact. So head to the amphitheater, hold square on the blue object, it'll start a little lockdown process, so get your whole team in there. You need to headshot the skeletons to kill them, and then just survive the zombie onslaught for about 20 seconds until Pegasus swoops in, kills all the zombies, and you're rewarded with a max ammo. At this point, you'll be able to start finding those purple glowing objects around the map that you need to destroy or dig up in order to get those base pieces that you're going to build into your gauntlets. I have a full detailed video on exactly how to build all 4 of the gauntlets that I'll be linking in the description down below. I didn't want to just repeat myself here for no reason because I'm sure many of you already know how to build the gauntlets, but if you don't, that's absolutely fine. Link in the description down below. I'll show you all of those part spawns and how to build everything, and it will really clear it up for you. So at this point in the game, you're absolutely free to start working on those gauntlet challenges. However, if you want to just barrel through main quest steps, the next thing for you to do is get your Bridle of Pegasus. This is going to be in one of 2 locations. The first is here on this white pillar with gold trimming, as you can see, and the second possible spawn for it is very nearby actually. You're just going to run across here, and you'll find another white pillar with gold trimming that it can also spawn on top of. When you grab it, a 6-armed giant will spawn. You'll need to kill it. I recommend using your specialist weapon. It makes it a lot easier, and when it dies, it will drop a shield part. The shield is going to be vital for this Easter egg, and again, that's another thing that I've got a full guide for in the description down below that I highly recommend you check out because I go through all of the part spawns in detail and show you exactly where to build it and things like that. So grab that shield part from the giant you've just killed, and once that giant is dead, you'll be able to walk over to the front of the Zeus statue in the Spartan area of the map, and Pegasus will arrive to transport you to the other side of the map, which I'm going to refer to as the Underworld. You're going to need your whole team in order to make that trip. So if you're in a 4-player game, all 4 of you have to be standing in the circle that's going to appear in front of the Zeus statue before you're able to start traveling. Get everyone together, head over to the Underworld, and your job now is to free 2 birds. They're going to be eagles trapped in cages. One's on the left and one's on the right-hand side of this area. The cage on the left is already on the floor, ready for you to just melee open with your specialist weapon. That's how you get it open. And the one on the right can be shot down with just a regular gun. You just have to keep shooting into the chain and it will drop down, or you can spear it if you want or something like that. And then you need to do the same thing, use your specialist weapon on the door, melee it, and it will open and the eagle will fly out. When both of those eagles are out, you can go to the Pack-a-Punch in the front of this area called the Center of the World, and a lockdown sequence will begin. You'll get some skeletons spawning in, and you basically just need to survive in there while the eagles destroy the crystals surrounding the Pack-a-Punch. with that open, you can absolutely go back to the real world, as I'm going to be calling it, if you like. That's the spawn area and all of the surrounding stuff around that. Or you could run around the underworld a little bit and look for some more of those gauntlet frame things that you're going to need to start building the rest of your gauntlets. Start looking for those purple glows. Once again, if you don't know what I'm talking about, watch my full gauntlet guide and all will become clear. Another thing that you might want to do when you're here is start building the Pegasus strike. And again, I've got a full video with all 9 locations for that in the description down below, which you can watch through really quickly, get an idea of exactly how you build that strike, and pick those parts up in no time. For now though, I'm going to assume that you're going to just go straight back through to the map and get working on main quest progress. The thing that we need to do is light the beacons. This isn't something you can do straight away. You need to be working on the tribute challenges that you can activate either in the underworld, in the Hephaestus Forge area, or inside the Temple of Apollo, the spawn room itself right in front of the Oracle. You need to go up to her, hold square, you'll spend 500 points or an increasing amount as the rounds go on, and you'll get a challenge like get headshot kills for 2 minutes, and you'll start to see rewards build up as you get those kills. First it will say common, then it will say rare, then it will say legendary, and then it will say epic. And depending on what you feel like you need in your game, you can customize your strategy here to choose how many rewards you kind of want to stack before you cash them in at the big fire in front of the gold statue in the Temple of Apollo. So for example, let's say you just want a random reward and you don't care what it is, maybe a double points. Then you can just redeem a common reward and that's fine. And then you can go and activate another tribute challenge, get yourself up to the common tier again, and then just cash it in and keep doing that. Alternatively, if you want a reward like a pack-a-punched weapon or a free perk or a free self-revive, then you're going to want to go for the epic challenge, and that's going to take multiple attempts at the tribute challenges. The good thing is the tribute challenges sort of stack one on top of the other, so if you get to rare in one challenge, then you can activate another and go from rare up to legendary, and then you can activate another and go from legendary up to epic and then cash it in. Once again, cashing it in the fire in front of that gold statue in the Temple of Apollo. My personal favorite way of doing this is going for epics, but if you go for rares, for example, you'll get things like max ammos, which can be really useful as well, obviously. The reason we're doing all this is that as you cash in more rewards, the flame in front of that gold statue is going to grow. Now, I'm not talking about the small flames in the bowls, but I'm talking about the big fire that's kind of behind it, and at first is hardly really on fire. It's just sort of smoldering, but once you've completed the step, there will be a kind of swirling blue flame on it. This, in a 4-player game, will take maybe 5 or 6 epic rewards across your team, and this is shared. So if one person cashes in 4 epic rewards, and then another cashes in 2 epic rewards, then the whole team should get the blue fire around about that time. You should see the flame growing as you make more progress and get more rewards as well. Make sure if you've got an epic reward available, you cash it in, because you can start working towards your next reward straight away as soon as it's been cashed in. So once you get that blue fire from doing enough tribute challenges and getting enough rewards from them, you're going to want to grab your shield, which I think you probably built earlier based on the guide in the description down below, like I mentioned. Now, that shield has a spear associated with it, and you're going to go over to that blue fire and melee it. This is going to set the end of your spear on fire, and this is dangerous because it's used for this step, but it will also damage your shield as time passes, and so you're going to want to do this reasonably quickly unless you're willing to buy a new shield a couple of times. With your burning tipped spear, don't change weapon, don't do any funny business, just hold it out and sprint to the patch of oil that I'm showing you in this gameplay here. If you melee the patch of oil, you should see it ignite, and a symbol on the wall will ignite in flames. You need to do this 2 more times in 2 other areas. Here is another one of the patches of oil. Again, you need the burning spear to do this, and you're going to melee the oil here in the map, and that's going to travel to the point outside the map where the symbol is. Then finally, we've got our 3rd spawn here. Here's the oil. We're going to melee it once again. That's going to set the symbol on fire outside the map, and when all 3 of those are done, you are finished with this part of the step. I'm going to give you a real quick reminder here that amongst that time that you were just spending doing all of those tribute challenges, you're going to want to be working on those gauntlets, because the gauntlet challenges are really easy, and the tribute challenges take a little while, and there are certain ones like take no damage, which are very easy to do at the same time as your gauntlet challenges. So maybe think like a speedrunner a little bit there and try and be productive with your time at all times. With those 3 symbols lit, we're going to need our Gauntlet of Sharon or Charon. This gauntlet's found in the underworld. It's the one that kind of shoots a red blobby sort of effect. And so grab that and head over to the Zeus statue in the Spartan area of the above ground part of the map. The step on your progress wheel will tell you that you're looking the dead in the eye or something along those lines. And what you need to do is, in this corridor of statues, fire a charged shot at the floor and then stand in the bubbles, and you'll see that your screen gets a weird visual effect on it, and you're able to shoot a single shot at some of the statues that are surrounding you, which will have blue glowing eyes. There should just be one at a time, and check both sides to make sure you're not missing it. And you're also, by the way, going to have for this step a load of skeletons spawning. Don't be too alarmed. You can obviously run away and come back and do this little bit by bit, but there are going to be a lot of skellies, so be wary. When you've fired your charged shot and you've seen the statue with blue eyes and you've shot a single shot at it, it should destroy the statue. And you're then going to want to run away again, come back, and just do the same thing again several times. When this is done, you're going to get a big shaking effect and the step will be complete. You'll have destroyed a load of the statues there, you'll probably have killed a load of skeletons, and you'll now need to align the citizens. This is going to use the spear again. There are several points around the map where you should see a wall which looks a little bit broken down. There might be some light shining through, it looks a bit suspicious. Throw a spear at it and the wall should break, revealing a moving cog behind it. Throw a spear at the small cog when it's touching the bigger stationary cog. So the small cog will be moving around either in a square or just in a line back and forth. And at the point where the small cog is closest to that big cog, you need to throw your spear and it will fix the small cog in place and start it turning the bigger cog. Here's the second spawn. We're going to be again throwing our spear to destroy the wall, making sure we get that right. And then we're going to be trying our best to lock that small cog in place so that it spins the big cog. This can be a little bit fiddly just for timing reasons, so don't get discouraged if you miss it 3 or 4 times. Just keep trying and you should be all set. There's going to be another one that we need to destroy here. As you can see, we destroy the wall first, just like we did before, and then we throw our spears at the cog to try and lock it into place. With that all done, you'll notice that there are statues now that are rotating around this white crystal in the center of the area that we've just been moving around. You'll also notice that across the way here in this room, there is a cog that's turning, and that is now our new target. If the cog isn't turning and there's some red stuff in there, it means that you haven't successfully done one of the previous cogs that I showed you, so make sure you double back and check all those locations. What you need to do is wait for these statues to all be facing the center of this area, facing that crystal, and you then need to throw your spear at that big cog that's turning in the room and lock the statues into place. This can again be a little difficult to time, but just keep trying it and you should be absolutely fine after a few attempts. The statues will lock and you'll have completed this step. The next thing you're going to want to work on uses the Gaia Gauntlet, which is the green one, the earth one. That one's found above ground. So grab that and then run over to the Danu perk. You're going to want to do exactly what I do in this gameplay here. Shoot this vine outside the map and then run over to where I am and you'll see these 2 vines appear, and you basically need to have both those vines visible in your line of sight before you fire a shot, and your gauntlet kind of bullet will split in 2 and hit both the vines. Then you need to back up a little bit and you'll see that 3 vines spawn in, and you need to do the exact same thing. Make sure that all 3 vines are in your line of sight, shoot a shot, it will split into 3 this time, and it will hit the 3 vines. You only have a few seconds to do this, so if you do it too slowly, you just have to hit the first vine again and give it another go. But if you do it successfully, you should have another 6-armed giant spawn into the map. This is a very useful giant because we're going to use him for 2 separate things at the same time. You don't have to do it this way, but I think it makes it easier, and I'll explain the way you can not do it this way after I've explained the current way that I'm going to. So we're going to bring this giant over to this area of the map where all this treasure is, and you're going to see that there's a crystal with an ankh lodged inside, kind of stuck at the top. Your job is to get the giant to shield blast that crystal to knock the ankh out and allow you to pick it up. This is not straightforward. It can be really fiddly because these giants are just annoying. They throw spears at you, they'll whack you with their sword, they're just a pain. What I recommend you do to try and get him to shield blast is try and shoot his red scars. He's got one on his front and one on his back, and by antagonizing him in this way, you should be able to get him to do a shield blast after a reasonable amount of effort, and you're going to have to hope that you can direct it at that ankh, and if you get it right, the ankh will break off and you'll be able to hold square on it and pick it up. Now, I said that you didn't necessarily have to do it with this giant, so what's the other method? Well, you still have to do it with a giant, it just doesn't have to be this particular one. So if you want to kill this one off and do this step a couple rounds later, you can absolutely do that. You should, at this point in the Easter egg, have these giants spawning each round, and so you should have a fresh attempt at this at a fairly regular interval. So don't worry too much if you don't use this particular giant to knock the Ankh down. What you will find either way is that when you kill that particular giant, he'll drop a golden rod. We're going to use that rod in a couple minutes time, but we're going to do something else first. The Ankh that we've just grabbed from the floor is something that we're going to go and give to the Ra statue. You can put it in his hand, and he'll then hold out his other hand. At this point, we need a different gauntlet. We need specifically the Gauntlet of Hemera, which is the light gauntlet, again found above ground. Grab the light gauntlet and give it to the statue of Ra. Now, it can be a bit fiddly, the angle that you have to give it to him from, but if you stand a little bit off to the side, you should be able to get this, and the glove should be accepted by the statue and go onto his outstretched hand. This is going to fire a beam across the room, and at this point, you kind of have to do a mini lockdown. There's going to be a lot of skeletons spawning in, and the skeletons are going to try and raise their shields to block the beam and stop it from basically blasting a hole in the wall. That's what we're trying to do here. So you need to try and kill the skeletons obviously as soon as they appear. They'll spawn in the front and the back end of this area, so make sure you're checking both sides of the beam to make sure it's safe. You also, after about 15 seconds of doing this, will probably have a Blightfather spawn in, so be ready for that. Don't be afraid to use your specialist weapon on it, because the hammer, for example, is really effective on the Blightfather. And you can also obviously use that for AoE as well to make sure no skeletons block the beam. If you fail this, you just need to give the gauntlet back to Ra again and give it another go. Once you successfully complete it, this will last about 45 seconds or so, you'll get a symbol burned into the far wall, and that will then crumble away and reveal the Scepter of Ra, which you can pick up and give back to the Ra statue. That's this part of the step complete. Congratulations, you're making super good progress. You now are going to want to run over to the Danu perk again and plant down that gold rod that we found earlier in the center of the sundial here. Just hold square on the middle of the sundial and it should plonk straight down. Once that's down, you're going to be getting a load of catalyst zombies spawning, and specifically the electric ones. You need to kill electric catalysts on the gold plate, that gold sundial, and when you do so, you'll see electricity shooting into the ground below you. You'll also see a window open up, and there'll be a symbol in there that's rotating, and it will go through a series of orange symbols and one blue one. What you're ultimately going to be doing here to interact with this thing is holding square on the window that you can see to close the window. And when you do that, it's basically going to lock that ring in place. Your goal is to set up the configuration so that the blue symbol that you're seeing isn't in the window you're closing when you shut it, but instead is underneath where the light beam is lying on the sundial, being cast by that gold staff that we've got going into the middle. So you should see that golden light pretty damn clearly, and then your window will be on the other side somewhere, and so when you see your blue symbol in the window, you're going to then need to count a certain number of movements before the blue symbol is underneath that yellow beam. So in this example, as you can see, I'm counting, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 points of the sundial, which the blue symbol will need to move through before it's underneath that yellow beam. And so I'm going to see my blue symbol in the window, and then I'm going to count those places, and then I'm going to hold square on the window and close it so that the blue one is locked in place under the yellow beam. The timing on this is a little bit annoying, and what I recommend you do is hold square a little early so that you give time for the game to shut the window and lock the dial in place. If you wait until the exact moment where the blue reaches the yellow symbol, it's going to be too late and it's going to move one more place before it freezes. And if that happens, you'll fail the step and you'll need to get another catalyst zombie and zap it again here and do the whole thing again on that outside dial. However, if you get it right, you'll see that your blue symbol actually appears under the yellow beam just like we wanted, and you'll then be moving on to another dial that's this time going to be moving a bit more quickly. But again, in order to get that dial moving, you're going to need another catalyst zombie. So in theory, you can do this in 3 electric zombies and just get it first time every time, but you'll probably want a little bit of practice on this, and thankfully, the game spawns plenty of electric zombies, so it shouldn't be too bad. It's worth noting that the last symbol, your third symbol, is going to be moving really quickly, differently. So if you're in a game where some of your players are from different areas, you might want your host player to be the one to interact with the puzzle, just because there'll be less lag involved. In my game, I wasn't host, but I was still doing it just because I had practice on it, but host would definitely be an easier situation to deal with. When you've got those three, you're actually going to be pretty close to the end of this Easter egg. Your team now need to all grab their gauntlets, and if you're solo, you just need to grab a gauntlet, and if you're two-player, just grab a gauntlet each, etc., and head over to the amphitheater. Pull your gauntlets out, and you should see that if you're all holding your gauntlets out at the same time, 4 colored symbols appear in this room. You need to all stand on the colored symbol that corresponds to your gauntlet. And you're timed for this, so you're going to want to be really snappy. You're also going to need ammunition, and while the game does give you ammo here, you might want to be thinking about maybe getting max ammos from the rare rewards from the Oracle trials as a backup plan in case things go wrong. I recommend that you listen through this section before you jump into the step just so you don't mess up. Here's how it works. When your team are all standing on those colored circles in the entrance, it's going to pick a color or multiple colors if you've got multiple players in your game, and it's going to give them another circle in the amphitheater that they're going to need to run to and stand on with their gauntlet out. It's then going to spawn in some zombies, which will either be in the stands or in the actual amphitheater with you on the floor, which you're going to need to kill with your gauntlet. The zombies will be colored to match your gauntlet, so you only need to kill your zombies, and you'll have them either in the stands or on the floor. That said, there's a chance that they play with the idea of there being both in solo, so keep on your toes for sure. If you have zombies in the stands, a single shot of your gauntlet should be enough to take them out. I normally fire 2 shots just to make sure that they register, and if you have zombies on the floor, you need to use a charged shot. Now this is where this gets tricky, okay? Certain gauntlets take different amounts of time in order to actually kill the zombies with that charged shot. So if you have the blue gauntlet, for example, you can just sweep across the room in an arc and kill all your zombies on the floor with a charged shot really easily. However, if you have the Gaia gauntlet, the green one, your charged shot is something that you're almost going to want to start charging up as soon as you reach your green circle and as soon as the game is telling you that you have zombies to kill, because otherwise you're going to be wasting precious seconds getting your hands in the air before you can put a slam down and kill some zombies. You also, with that green gauntlet, are going to want to try and make sure that you get yourself into the same line as the zombies that have spawned in on the floor. So the zombies on the floor will always be in a rough line, and you basically want to get to the front or back of that line and fire along it just to make sure that you can kill them all in one charge without any hassle. Sometimes it can be a bit fiddly, and so you can bend the line if you want to. That's part of how the charged shot works, but generally if you can get in that line and just fire it along it, it's really, really easy compared to some of the other stuff you might have to do. So let's say you've just killed your zombies in the stands or on the floor. At this point your screen goes black and white, and that's an indicator that you need to run back to the original position which we were standing in the entrance. However, if your screen doesn't go black and white and instead there's another symbol that matches your color somewhere on the floor, you're going to need to run over to that and do another one of these rounds, either killing zombies in the stands or on the floor. You'll have a couple of these in a row, and then it will 100% of the time send you back to the entrance. You'll stand there for about 10 seconds and you'll get a completion thing saying, hey, we made some progress. You then need to do the same thing again. When you see your color in the middle, run over to it as fast as you can, kill your zombies in as little time as possible, and then either get ready to run to your next circle or get ready to run to that entrance area again if your screen goes black and white. It will keep increasing in difficulty and increasing in complexity, so you'll end up with all 4 of the players in your game, for example, in 4-player games, having to do their stuff at once, and so it gets a little bit hectic. But on the whole, it's a basic kind of concept that just gets applied over and over again for 3 separate full rounds. When you're done, you should get a victory completion quote, and you'll see a beam above your heads going into the waterfall. However, if you fail at any point, you'll see a white flash and your character will say, "Ah, that didn't go as planned," or something along those lines. You'll get 5 or 6 attempts to retry during each round, and the retry will be initiated just like how you started it, with everyone pulling out their gauntlets and standing on their corresponding colored symbols in that entrance to the amphitheater floor. The step can be a bit buggy. I'll be totally honest with you, multiple teams had bugs with this step during the solving of this Easter egg, and so you might need to give this several tries, and that's why I mentioned those max ammos from the rare rewards from the Oracle trials. They can be really useful here. But with a little bit of practice, I think you should be fine. Just try and think smartly about how you're using your charged shot or how you're using your shot into the stands to make sure you're killing as fast as possible. Once all that's said and done and you've looked up and you've got that victory quote and you've seen that beam going into the waterfall, you're then going to need to go back to the underworld and use, I believe, a pack-a-punch gun on this door. The door's located in this little corridor here. There are 6 symbols you need to shoot, and this is the order you need to shoot them in. When you do so, depending on the number of players in your game, you need Bruno and Shaw to go and stand in front of that door and hold square. If you're in solo, obviously you don't have both of those players, so just make sure you go and stand in front of that door. There's a cutscene here that I'm not going to spoil because it's a pretty cool cutscene, but I've got it on my channel if you want to watch it. Again, link in the description down below. And I'll also have some extra details down below for solo players just to make sure that you don't have any worries about how exactly this step is going to work. Like, I'll answer all your questions in the description. So when that's done, you'll come back to the map, and at this point you'll see a blue symbol on the floor, which needs your Pegasus strike to be placed down on top of it. The Pegasus strike is that thing that we built way earlier in the egg. I said that I had a guide for it. It's very easy to build, so if you haven't built it yet, once again, just check out that guide. You can build it right now, super easy, and then place your Pegasus strike down on top of the blue symbol. Pegasus will spawn in right in front of the area that you're in, right in front of the Odin perk in fact, and will cause a crossbow to appear in front of you. You then need to go grab the Gauntlet of Ouroboros, which is right in front of the Omphalos, the golden egg in the center of the world, so that's just the opposite side of the area to the Odin perk. And so grab that gauntlet and come back to this newly appeared crossbow. You need to rotate the crossbow so it's facing the big woman behind the pack-a-punch. This can be done with a charged shot from that wind gauntlet. You're going to want to play with the angle here. I've done this from the front of the crossbow, firing at the cog in the kind of middle of it and using that to rotate it, firing to the right-hand side. You can also do it from the side and rotate it that way. There are a few ways to do it, but it's a charged shot that is going to be the key here, and you're going to want to rotate it about 4 or 5 clicks before it locks into place. When it does lock into place, it'll be very obvious because it will spring back and it will clearly be loaded. At this point, your characters will say that they need a trigger in order to fire it. And so you're going to need to now go back to the regular world and grab yourself a shield if you don't already have one. The shield needs its tip ignited once again, just like we did right at the beginning of the Easter egg, and you're then, with that ignited tip, going to want to fast travel back to the underworld. You need to activate the poison trap and run through that trap with your fiery tipped spear being held in front of you. You should see that it gets a green effect on it, like a green fiery smoky effect, and you're then going to want to run all the way up to the crossbow and melee it from the back in order to fire the bolt. This is the final thing you need to do before boss fight. So at this point, get all your perks, get yourself a new shield, make sure that you've got yourself your elixirs up, for example, maybe go an extra round just to get those refreshed. Do all the things you normally do before a boss. I also really recommend that rocket launcher if you can get it out of the box. That thing's really strong. It always is for bosses. The main thing that you're going to want to make sure you have though, and this is very important, is your gauntlet. And if you're in co-op, all of your gauntlets. Each player should have a gauntlet, basically. When you're ready for boss, go over to the egg in the center of the world, and everyone's going to need to hold square. This is a point of no return, so get ready to meet your maker. The boss has 2 stages. First of all, you're going to be fighting Dark Pegasus, and then you're going to be fighting the zombie warlord himself. For the Pegasus part of the fight, you need to wait for Pegasus to fly over one of the islands that you're standing on, and then use your gauntlet, or your rocket launcher, to fire into Pegasus and cause the horse to fall from the sky. It will glow orange when this happens, and this indicates that it can be damaged, and you're going to damage it by using your specialist weapon. You may also find that you can get hit markers with things like the rocket launcher here, but specialist weapon, I think, is the most important part of this. You're going to do a bunch of damage to the horse while it's in this orange state, and then as soon as it starts lifting up again, you're going to want to get off that island because it's going to leave a trail of fire and electricity in its wake, and it can hurt you quite a lot, so you've got to be very careful. Now also, as Pegasus is swooping over the islands, it's going to drop a trail of electricity, and the zombie warlord in the center of the map is also going to be throwing little fire clumps at you, fire spears I guess, and so you're going to need to dodge those as well. You're going to want to repeat the process of firing your gauntlets at Pegasus. They'll home in on it, so you'll be good there. Knocking it out of the sky, so make sure you're trying to sort of shoot your gauntlets a little early so your bullets have time to get there, and when they hit Pegasus, it's still over the island, so you can knock it out of the sky still. And then when it's knocked out of the sky, you swing away with your hammer or your chakrams, etc., and do as much boss damage as you can. With this done several times, and it does take several times, you'll end up with an island being destroyed. this will insta-kill you if you're on the island when it happens, so be very mindful of the possibility that hellfire and meteors start raining down on one of your islands. You're going to want to take out Pegasus, and when you've done that successfully, you'll see in the center of the map that Pegasus has a brief fight with the zombie warlord, but the zombie warlord wins. And now it's time for you to attack the zombie warlord. Now this is going to be much more claustrophobic because at this point, multiple islands are going to be inaccessible. So if you've got undead man walkings, etc., this is the time to use them 100%. The zombie warlord's going to throw some spears, it's going to summon some giants, and then it's going to do a kind of casting attack, and it's going to teleport itself into the arena with you. At this point, you need to spam it with your rocket launcher if you've got it, and your gauntlets, and you'll get hit markers when you do this, and you'll knock the boss into a crouching state where you can absolutely lay into it and do a load of damage. The boss has a couple weak points. I think one's on its shoulder, one's on its kind of torso area, and so try and find those when you're attacking it and make sure that you're actually getting hit markers when you're shooting the boss. Some weapons aren't going to be effective here, so again, if you've got your specialist weapon, then wail away with that. That will definitely do you well, but other weapons like the rocket launcher, for example, again, are going to be really, really effective. You're going to need to go through this process maybe 6 times or so. I think that's what I had in my 4-player game, and eventually once you've done enough boss damage, it will die and drop a key. You need to grab the key, and this is basically the end of the game at this point. Just don't die in the last 5 seconds. Now, if you're having any trouble with the boss, check the description down below like I've said previously in the video. I'll have some extra tips on there on weapons, etc., just to make sure that you're doing the best possible damage at all times. With that said though, that's the full Easter egg. Congratulations if you've got here. Thanks for watching the video. I've tried to make this as straightforward as possible and as quick as possible, but obviously, because of the fact that I'm also trying to add as much extra explanation and clarity to everything, these guides do always end up being a little bit longer. Hopefully that's something that you guys don't dislike too much though. I've really put a lot of time into this, and I'm really glad that we managed to get it all finished up. Thanks for watching. Drop a like on the video if you've enjoyed, like I've said. Maybe even subscribe for more guides in the future, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.